Hello, hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. How are you today? I really hope you know I mean it when I say you are amazing and you are beautiful inside and out. And I truly am so grateful for all of you who do tune in and listen. For those of you who reach out, ask questions, make reviews, thank you for joining me each week and for being a part of this community where women are supporting women. All right. So, quick episode today. I had an experience last week and had a really cool thought or analogy, and I wanted to share it with you because it really made a connection for me. But have you ever thought to yourself or thought out loud, how did I get this so wrong? How did I miss the red flags and get into this marriage in the first place? Or I chose wrong. I got it wrong. Or where did things go wrong? I thought everything was right. How could things have taken such a turn in the wrong direction? I thought I was doing everything right. Any of those resonate with you? They totally did for me. In fact, my at one point swearing never to get in another relationship again came from the fear of getting it wrong again because I thought I got it wrong the first time. And look, when you have kids, I know thinking that you got it wrong can sometimes feel wrong because you would never trade the experience for your children. And I'm so grateful for my four children in spite of everything that happened. And where the hell did things go so wrong and how could I never get it wrong again? Right? Okay, so I want to share an analogy with you. I know to some this might seem really silly, and you're like, Amy, you're nuts. I don't see how this relates. Yes, I'm nuts, and it's okay if you don't see it. I'm sharing it anyways. So I was out on one of my favorite places to kayak, and I like finding these little coves where you can just kind of like scoot around and you're surrounded by these trees and beauty, and it's quiet, and it kind of feels like you're the only one in the world at that moment. Anyways, I was in one of these tiny little coves and I kayaked down a ways and I was just leaning back and thinking and reflecting about all the things that I'm doing wrong, all the things that I'm getting wrong and feeling wrong that I'm thinking about all these things that are wrong in my life because here I am in this beautiful environment and I'm supposed to be probably like meditating or thinking of something positive, but I wasn't. I looked up at one point and I noticed this really big tree and I was just kind of staring at it and observing this really just how gigantic this tree was all the way from its trunk. And as I was paying attention to this particular tree and looking at all of its different parts, I had this thought come over me, this analogy that really resonated with me. The trunk alone was probably like 7 of me squished together. It ran straight and proud and then into one big branch with probably 100 branches off of that one, and then even smaller branches off of those, each having their own leaf or maybe a few leaves, some without. As my eyes gazed up at this tree, branch by branch, noticing how many twists and turns and sprouts and branch offs there were, I had another thought. This tree is beautiful to me because of all the many different branches in the different directions and, quote, wrong turns that this organism made over the years, right? It started out like on this one straight path, this trunk growing straight, and then out pops this branch that really went out so far that you can see that it started to bend in like this kind of weird, odd direction. And because of this, I know this is going to be hard to imagine, but because of this bend on the inside of it, you could tell it was dead. It had died and there was this big gaping hole in it, right? And then on that branch, a few more paths this organism took the liberty of creating a branch off of that one. And because that new growth of a branch was heavier than the original, it had snapped in half and you can tell that it had broken off. And I thought to myself at this moment, as I was noticing all these imperfections and different directions that this tree had taken over the many, many years that it's been an organism, I thought, holy crap, this tree is beautiful because it got it, quote, wrong. Of course, that big branch off of the small main one isn't going to hold. So, of course, it snapped off. Of course, when it bends like this in this odd, weird direction, the inside of this part of this particular branch is dead and has a huge gaping hole because it was susceptible to, elements and woodpeckers that created this gaping hole. So, of course, look at all the, again, I'm air quoting if you're not watching me on YouTube. Of course, the wrong things about this tree have happened over the course of the years that it's been alive, but the tree, this organism, is not inherently wrong. And because of all the different paths that these branches took, it's beautiful, it's breathtaking, and oh so right. You didn't make a wrong choice by choosing to marry him. And just because this branch that you thought would grow strong and hold lots of other branches along the way with leaves and perhaps fruit, parts of it snapped off. It doesn't make you inherently wrong. And if you keep on growing and keep on sprouting new sprouts and growing new branches and new growth, it will become even more full and beautiful. We are not supposed to grow in one straight line. That's kind of boring. Every choice, especially the wrong ones for you, just add beauty to your life story if you let it. What I noticed sitting there in that kayak surrounded by this beautiful organism was how my organism, me, was also filled with lots of wrong choices that at one point seemed right. That seemed like this branch I was creating in this right direction was going really well, but a storm hit and it snapped. It doesn't mean that it was wrong to begin with. Does that make sense? Once I stopped making myself wrong for that initial choice to choose to marry someone who, yes, at some point made a couple turns and there were some dead spots on the tree and eventually it snapped off. But if I could go back and look at that little sprig where there was hope in the possibility that that little sprig would grow and become beautiful, that wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong for believing in someone. I wasn't wrong for choosing to love. I wasn't wrong for not knowing the dangers and recognizing the disease and the parasites that could destroy this beautiful thing that I was trying to create. I wasn't wrong for believing over and over and over again what he was saying was true. I wasn't wrong for choosing to stay when I thought it was the right thing to do for the children. And I wasn't wrong for cutting off the rest of that snapped branch so that the disease wouldn't spread. Now, I know I can get really carried away with this analogy, but the longer I sat there and looked at this, the more this really resonated with me. And what I know I've been working really hard the last several years of doing is to stop making myself so wrong about that choice. And I hear this a lot with clients. I hear this a lot with those who are joining my dating after divorce course. Like, okay, I'm going to take this because I really want to know how to not get it wrong again because they believe they really got it wrong the first time. And when we go into life, when we believe that we chose wrong, we did it wrong, or we're wrong, something's wrong with us, and then now let's just fix that so that we can then get it right, it absolutely impacts the direction, or in most cases, no direction. We stay stuck and we stop the growth. What I really want to offer you today in this brief episode is to think about your life like this, to stop worrying about getting things wrong, trying so hard to stay in one straight, boring line where it's actually in the branching off and creating some leaves and fruit that brings joy in life, even if things don't work out or even look that pretty, because you get to create another branch always. At one point, never thought that I would be able to work full time and raise 4 children. I never really wanted to. One of the beautiful branches that I started out creating on my tree was staying home with my children, raising them, teaching them, creating a home that was filled with love. I never wanted to work outside that home until they got a little older. I had side jobs here and there, but never full time. Anyways, when that particular branch broke, it felt devastating. It felt like this beautiful fruit I was growing on that branch was now going to be damaged in some way. But I created something new. I created a business. I created a business that, even though it wasn't exactly in line with the previous branch I was starting to create, it was still beautiful. It was still filled with so many offsprings of friendships that I would have never experienced had I not created that. So much love and support from people that has forever created fruit on this particular branch of my tree. That new branch was really scary to create, but it actually has made my tree beautiful and more full. I think about the new family through my second marriage, this new branch of beautiful people and beautiful experiences that came along from, quote, getting things wrong. These new connections with new people that I choose to love and people who choose graciously to love me is beauty that came from a snapped branch that at one point I thought was going to end the growth of my tree. Whatever it is you choose to create, it is not wrong because it just adds beauty to your tree and to your story, even if it doesn't go in the direction or the shape or produce what you thought or hoped it would. When we believe we got it wrong and stop growing and stop creating, that is not what your organism was intended for. You were not made to stop growing. You were made to bend and break and then produce and regrowth over and over again. What makes you beautiful is not the straight, right, all the time, perfectly, aligned branches. I mean, okay, we can find beauty in everything, but I'm not sitting in my kayak gawking and staring at one straight line trunk. I'm gawking at the beauty of this full, snapped branch, dead parts, wild looking, twist turned tree. So I have a few thoughts for you to practice here that have really helped me in this area overcome a very deeply rooted fear of getting things wrong and a belief that I got a lot wrong, that somehow inherently I am wrong. So my coach offered me this thought years ago when I was struggling with these fears, and I wrote it on a sticky note and put it everywhere. And the first thought that I practiced around this was, I might be wrong about that. I know, right? Did you just have a mini heart attack? I totally did when she offered this to me. I was like, were you even listening to me this whole time? I don't want to be wrong. You're supposed to help me figure out how to not do that. This thought is wrong. But here's what I noticed when I leaned into this. And I started off with very non-emotionally charged situations. So let me offer that suggestion to you. That looked like, what do I want to make for dinner tonight? Maybe spaghetti. I might be wrong about that. Like, I want to go to bed at 10. Maybe I should jump in the shower, but I might be wrong about that. I just started adding those words to the end of every sentence just to start getting familiar, creating that new neural pathway in my brain, because it was a little easier to add it to those non-emotionally charged ones rather than some that do hold a little bit more heavier, intense emotion. So that's a little trick that I'll offer you that really helped me. But what I noticed when I started to do this, I was less fearful of getting it wrong. I actually started to expect to be wrong. And there wasn't this kind of panic ridden shock. I became less and less afraid of getting it wrong. And when I added that phrase, I might be wrong about that, to the end of everything, it opened myself up to options. So I might be wrong about that, which then means maybe there's another choice. Growth, creation, creating a new branch comes with options. But when you believe you got it wrong, when you believe that you did it wrong, everything went wrong, and we're stuck and halted, there is no other choice. There is no regrowth. Does that make sense? Okay, another thought after that one that I practiced was, it's okay to be wrong. Again, my first reaction when she offered me this was no, it's not. And this is perhaps where working with a coach on getting more awareness around why it feels so dangerous to be wrong can be really helpful. But when you stop making yourself wrong for getting things wrong, and know that a lot of situations like your first marriage was actually right at that time, you can stop getting stuck. You can start creating the next right thing for you right now. There are so many things that we moralize and black and white thinking here that were never intended to be moralized. And when you made a conscious choice based on what you knew at the time, with the information that you had, with the perspective, with the learning, the knowledge, the life experience, or lack of life experience, lack of knowledge, no fault of your own. I got married at freaking 18. I didn't have the knowledge that I do today. And so, why would I make myself intrinsically wrong or beat myself up or stop growing because I believed that I got it wrong when I didn't have all of this information that I do today? But at that time, with what I knew, with what I felt, with what I didn't know, I made the right choice for me at that time. And as I became more aware, more educated, and less tolerant of the experience that I was having, I made another choice. And then I made another choice, and then another choice. And all of those different branches and choices and sprigs and leaves and fruit have created a beautiful tree. And I'm not done creating, and neither are you. I hope this makes sense. I hope I'm such a visual learner, and this really helped me to see how beautiful our lives really are with the ability to choose so many times over and over and over again, and that none of those choices make you inherently wrong. When you don't like the results of a choice, you can choose another branch. This is why addiction is so crippling, right? Because it inhibits the ability to choose. The addiction becomes the chooser. And all of you listening know all too well how those choices also impact others. But you are the chooser in your life and can make and create beautiful by getting it wrong and believing that you can always choose again the right thing for you right now. All right, everyone. I hope that helped today. Thank you for listening. Please, if you are looking for additional support from other people who might feel like they got it wrong, join my divorce support group. These women are amazing, and it takes supporting and getting support to a whole new level. The first 12 weeks are free in those support groups. There's a morning and an evening on every Wednesday that is available. The link to that and more information will be in the show notes. All right, everyone, have a beautiful day, and I will see you soon.